What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of You Guessed It. You can't make this BS up. And this is your host, Joel Davis. And I am starting a new segment on the podcast, and we're going to start calling it Black Friday. Black Friday is going to be when I will take my time and I will bring to you black crime that is committed by, you guessed it, black individuals, whether it's in America or across the pond, international, whatever. That's what we will discuss. And when I do this on Fridays, this will give you a chance to actually get an insight of there's more to the story that meets the eye. I want to say thank you for everyone that has been listening to the podcast. Like I said, we're still small, we're still growing. I do have a couple of things to put out there. I am currently have a Facebook group, so everybody can be able to have a chance to be a part of that Facebook group and discuss actual crimes that are going on or cases that I've already recorded about them. This group is going to be fun. Hopefully, it'll be a place for everybody to have a chance to just, you know, get to know each other and, no drama. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to get no drama. I'm just trying to make it where everybody will take their time, enjoy what we got going on. Now, please do believe if you like what I bring to the table when it comes to these podcasts, lead to this podcast, sorry. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, hit the 5-star rating, give me a comment. It helps out with the actual show. Now, if you're on my YouTube channel, you can't make this BS up. Please definitely leave the comments, and I will have the links also in the description from now on for you guys to actually go to the actual Spotify or whatever uh podcast network that or application that you use to listen to the show. All right, so again, enough of that. Like I said before, I'm definitely want to make sure that everybody know that I am always going to be releasing new material every Wednesday and every Friday. So Wednesday, you're gonna get the regular stuff, which will be any type of true crime that I decide to go with for the week. It may be murder, maybe scams. We're doing it all. It could be the actual what they call a RICO case where you got people just doing all kinds of organized crime, whatever. I decided to go with, we will do with that. And on Fridays, like I said, new segment started. It will be called Black Friday. So Black Friday will be where we talk about a black true crime case. Not all of it will be all about murder. Some of it will be about scamming, whatever have you. But that's where we are going in the direction of podcasts. So first Black Friday episode that we're going to talk about is coming out of Beaufort, Georgia, near Atlanta. Now, let me say something right quick, friends. What if your whole life you have worked hard to build the American dream? You have put in the work to make sure your family is safe, to make sure that everybody around you is always good. You've done everything that a man is supposed to do to take care of his family. Then all of a sudden, your whole life is turned upside down in a matter of minutes that you can't even describe how we even got here. But that's my clothes fell on the side there. But either way it goes, it's gonna take a lot of, how can I put this, prayer and a lot of patience to get to the final chapter of justice. So let's begin. Give me 1 second. All right. So Beaufort, Georgia. It's a quiet suburb, not that far from Atlanta, Georgia. Now I'm going to give you some facts about Beaufort, Georgia, and what it's about to give you an idea of the city of Beaufort, Georgia. So the city of Beaufort, Georgia is in Gwinnett, Georgia, Gwinnett and Hall County. So it's a part of two counties. Now, most of the city is in Gwinnett County, which again is a part of the Atlanta, Sandy, Springs, and Marietta metropolitan statistic area. Now, the northern part of this city is in Hall County. Now, that is mostly Surprises, Gainesville, Georgia. All right. Now, the population of the city itself, of the suburb of Beaufort, is around about 17,144 people. Okay. Now, this city was founded around about 1872, and its purpose was a railroad that was built in the area to connect Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta. And if you guys know, Charlotte is not that far from Atlanta. In fact, I think it's roughly maybe about almost 3 hours, if that. So from Charlotte to Atlanta is not that far. Over the years, it has grown tremendously. People love being a part of this city because it's quiet, it's not near the city, it's very suburbanized. It's just the type of place that it's a bedroom community. To sum it all up, it's a bedroom community. Now, here we are. It's November the 16th, 2017. You got 43-year-old George Young. Now, he's a father of three, and he is a small business owner. Now, his business is about security. He offers security for a lot of events and even major entertainers, from your R&B singers, hip hop stars, country stars, rock stars, whoever that wants security around Atlanta at the time. He was the guy to be the one to rely on. So anyway, it's late. He's returning home from his security job. This night, it's calm, it's dark, it's still. He pulls up into his driveway on Montauk Hill Drive. Okay. Now, moments later, he will understand that his whole world is about to change, because as he is approaching to get in his house, everyone inside in the neighborhood and even him hears all of a sudden his wife rushes out along with her brother. They both see that George has been shot twice on his front porch, once in the face and once in the chest. And that's when the frantic 911 call comes across at 11:31 p.m. Now, while he's collapsed at his doorway, he has his keys still hanging in the lock. He got a single spent shell casing on the ground beside him. By the time the officers arrive at about 11:40, George Young is pronounced dead. His feet is pointed towards the door of the home he would never enter again. This is the true story of George Young's murder. Case of betrayal, like I said before, and greed that would stun the community in the days that followed. George's wife of 22 years, Tia Young, tearfully appeared on local news and pleading for answers. Neighbors rallied around the grieving family, bringing meals and raising funds to help George's widow and children. But as the investigators assigned to the case begin to delve deeper, they start to realize an unsettling truth emerged, that the killers were closer than George even realized. So, how did a devoted father and husband end up being targeted in a cold-blooded murder? How did this all happen? And who is the one that betrayed him, or ones that betrayed him? Did justice finally prevail? Well, before we get to that, we got to go back and talk about the start of George Young. See, George Frederick Young III was a man defined by dedication to his family, his work, and those in need. He was born in 1974. He grew up in South Carolina and later moved his family to Georgia, seeking better opportunities. Everybody would tell you he's a hard-working businessman, and he started his own security firm after years with Ackerman Security, striving through the financial ups and downs to build a better life for his wife Tia and their three sons. people would say there was nothing but success ahead. The um prosecutors even firm would later say of George's determination. By 2017, George was running Metro Atlanta security and fire and often took on extra security gigs. In fact, on his last night that he was on this earth, he worked a second job guarding a rap concert, showing his hustle to provide for his family. Now, people had good things to talk about how he was so professional when he did his security stuff. They said that he was the top guy in making sure that you felt comfortable and safe at the events. All eyes on all of the small detail of things. He was just that guy. Now, besides of him being known as being a security protecting the celebrities and being a devoted and father and loving husband, people that knew George described him as loved, kind. Like even in court, the prosecutor will painted him as a person about whom there is hardly anybody with a negative word to say. Perhaps nothing. It illustrates George's generosity more than what he did for a friend of his named Harvey Tim Lee. Now, Harvey was a family friend and he fallen on hard times, living out of hotels. When George took him in, George was like, bruh, I got you. All right, listen, man, I know you going through something right now, and I am my brother's keeper. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you out this situation. I'm going to get you a role in my company. You know what I mean? And we going to do this, man. Like, we can be that team. All right. Well, you could be my Batman. You could be my Robin to my Batman. You know what I mean? Like, we got this, dog. And so Henry, he was like, Harvey, he was like, bruh, you'll do that for me? AKA Tim. And, you know, George was like, hell yeah, man, you my dog. You bro. You fam. In fact, I even put an icing on the cake. You can live in my house with me and my wife and my kids rent free. All you gotta do is just come to work and we handle business, dog. That's all you gotta do. Now, Tia Young, which is George's wife, welcomed Harvey as well. Now, she claimed to everyone that was around that knew the family that they looked at Harvey Tim Lee as a little brother. Like, that's my little bro. Even Tia was saved in Harvey's phone contact as Big Sis. Sounds good, don't it? Sound like a lovely family. This act of kindness is about to set a stage of betrayal that no one saw coming. See, the friend George helped would later be accused of doing the unthinkable. And that unthinkable would be helping Tia in a plot against him. But we'll get to that in a minute. The night of November 16, 2017 appeared to unfold like any other until the deadly moment that ended George's life. So late that night, George drove home from the extra security detail. Speaking with a co-worker, Latanya knows on his cell phone as he neared home. Now, Latanya later testified that George chatted with her until about 11:23 p.m., mentioning nothing unusual and cheerfully saying he just had a ride home. It was presumably moments after hanging up that George stepped out of his car and approached his front door, keys in hand. And then you're reminded of what came next. Two gunshots tore through the night. Neighbors would later confirm hearing the pops and the dog barking. One neighbor even peered out to see what looked like someone hunched over near George's car in the driveway immediately after the shot. Now, this is at 11:31 p.m., like we said before. The 911 call was placed by his wife, Tia Young. She sounded panicked, frantic, very much like any woman or spouse would sound like when they saw their spouse being shot in the chest, also in another place. I think they said the back from an intruder that nobody has never seen. Now, again, here's how the call went. I don't have the call itself, but I can definitely give you an example of how it was. 911, what's your emergency? My husband, I heard gunshots outside. I think my husband's been shot. Police and EMTs rushed at the scene. Again, like I said, arriving at 11:40 p.m. to a grim discovery that George's body was laying in the back on the front porch, his legs pointed up. And towards the door he had been trying to open, the porch light, which is bright as ever, could just show you all of the things that no one should want to see at experience at their residence, especially their loved one. Unresponsive, a man bleeding from 2 bullet wounds to his torso, his keys dangling from the lock, and instead of opening the door, here he is filled up with a 40 caliber shell, with a 40 caliber shell casing beside him and being shot with a 40 caliber. Officers noted the home's security camera, and it's meant to monitor the front door. But there's something strange about this. It was oddly disabled. Now, an issue the couple's eldest son later said had been the case for months. Tia Young and Harvey Lee were the only adults home when the couple's children and Tia's mother that night. Police separated them for initial questioning, like always, on the scene. Harvey Lee told officers a dramatic account. He was sitting at the kitchen table on his laptop when he heard the gunshots. He claimed he sprinted upstairs to grab his own pistol, then came back down to find George collapsed. According to Harvey, he handed his gun to Tia or put it away. Now, his story shifted a little bit, though. Told Tia to call 911 and then attempted CPR on George until a neighbor arrived to help. Indeed, on the recorded 911 call, Harvey can be heard saying he's performing CPR on his friend, but a medical examiner would later testify that George showed no physical evidence of CPR attempt, no bruising or disturbances that would expect if chest compressions had been done. Damn, man. So were you really doing press chest compressions on your bro, or were you simulating it? Or maybe there's more again to the story. I'm smelling bullshit. Tia's story to the police echoed Harvey's in some ways. She said the pop of 2 gunshots woke her up from the sleep in her account. Harvey ran for his gun while urging her to dial 911. Tia told officers she was too squeamish to go outside in the dark and see her husband in that state. In fact, on the 911 call, Tia refused the dispatcher's instructions to go to George, crying, "I can't. I just can't look at him like that." Instead, a male neighbor took over CPR from Harvey until paramedics arrived. Now, when officers gently probed for any ideas of who might harm George, Tia mentioned money troubles. Damn, it's always money trouble. "We stay broke," she sided to the police, noting she recently lost her job and George had been borrowing money from friends. She also floated an eerie anecdote. George, she said, had felt he was being followed by a mysterious white SUV in recent weeks. On one occasion, the SUV allegedly tried to run him off the road. Was this a foreshadowing of a target attack or a planted ready hearing to basically throw off the cops? Police took note, even as they observed that neither Tia nor Harvey seemed to have clear alibis beyond being at home. By dawn on November 17, George Young's homicide was the talk of the neighborhood. 7 different neighbors would ultimately report hearing the gunfire ring out. Yet, aside from the lifeless body on the porch, immediate evidence was sparse. The murder weapon was a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson P handgun, which, based on ballistics, was nowhere to be found. Police found 2 handgun holsters and 1 handgun, not in the murder caliber, in Harvey's room, plus a rifle in Harvey's truck, but nothing to directly tie to the shooting. They swabbed Harvey's hands for gunshot residue. None was on there, but notably they did not test Tia's hands that night. No usable fingerprints turned up on the bullets or case. It seemed at first glance that whoever ambushed George might have fled into the night, leaving the family devastated. In Suspicions and Investigations, Unraveling the Lies. In the immediate aftermath, Tia Young played the role of the heartbroken widow to the hilt. The next day, on November 17th, local TV cameras captured Tia wiping away tears. My heart just sank, she told 11 Alive news report. Now, I am going to try to see if I can pull up and let y'all see what she said here. Give me 1 second. We're going to pull this up. All right, I'm about to play. I might have to go back here for a minute. All right, so I am about to play the clip here where she actually talks about her husband being gunned down. So again, this is fair use, fair use. We're going to play it. And then after I play this 2-minute segment right quick, we'll get back to the story. Let's run it.
Is pleading for
After telling the news about what actually happened to her husband, the community was so moved by the situation that was going on with the Young family, especially Tia Young being a widower, that they decided to rally behind her and set up a GoFundMe page. It was going to help Tia and the children get back on their feet. Now, you got the neighbors organizing a meal train, which is to drop off dinners, which is real popular in the South, especially when someone passes away. They will have someone to come by, bring all types of foods that's already cooked. They will either cook it themselves or they will get it from a local restaurant that provides a warm, hot food. These restaurants could include, especially in the black family, you know what I mean? Popeyes, churches, chicken, KFC. Where I'm from, if you from the Carolinas, you know, in a certain part of Carolina, you know what I'm talking about. Yogi Bear, you know, chicken, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So at George's funeral, people were comforting Tia and her kids. They were giving her words of encouragement. It was like, baby, it's gonna be fine. You got a community behind you. They only know the secrets that Miss Tia was already harbored. So Gwinnett County detectives are digging in this case, right? They grew a little bit uneasy, not even a little bit, but actually very uneasy about the narratives given by Tia and Harvey. Because there's a lot of inconsistencies coming to light. For one, the neighbor's eyewitness account of someone hunched by George's car after the shots don't square with an unknown assailant speeding away, because that's what they were told. And if you rewind this, you will see that. It suggested that the shooter might have been inside the house, right? Stepped out briefly to the George's car, then gone back in. In fact, the neighbor even testified that he saw somebody do this twice in the George home. They came out, they did something near the car, then they returned indoors, like within minutes of them hearing the gunshot. So investigators starts to reflect on the night of the murder. Harvey unprompted mentioned something about George's car. Now, during his first formal police interview on November the 17th, Harvey Lee made a startling admission. He said that right after George was shot, he, which is Harvey, went outside and removed the tracking device from underneath George's car. Now, I know you're probably wondering, why in the world would George have this tracking device under his car? And why would Harvey want to run out and take this tracking device from under the car? Now, Harvey claimed that George himself had asked him to put this tracker on the car. It was to make sure that they'll know if George ever went missing or something was to happen to him, they could locate the car. Now, the police is like, and the detectives is like, okay, why would he want a tracking device on his car? He is a regular security guard. This guy supposed to be security for Lenox Mall, security for regular celebrities. It ain't like he's the Secret Service and he is protecting the president. This shit don't sound right. So they decided to go ahead on here and start pulling text messages between George and Harvey. okay, with the subpoenas to see what would entail for George to want a tracking device in on. Well, they look at all these text messages between Harvey and George, and that's not what's being said between them. Nothing about a tracking device has ever been brought up in the conversation. So that really starts to make the detective saying, "Oh man, I know he lying." So they started to figure out what would be the more likely scenario. And the scenario they came up with, which is very chilling, Harvey had to plant that tracker to monitor George's movements without him being aware of this. Now they're asking, well, what was the reason behind it? Is he trying to set the so-called best friend that he bragged about for an ambush that night? And then after the murder, he hurry up and retrieve and hide the evidence? But, Harvey hearing all of these speculations about him and brought up towards him like, yeah, the device is in my bedroom. Police get a search warrant and they get the device. That same day, while that is going down, Tia Young, she done started making her own waves in the wrong way. So Tia wasn't home when the detectives was interviewing Harvey about all the things that took place during the night of this tragic murder. She was going out. She had gone out. So people thinking maybe she's attending to try to take care of the husband's funeral. But she wasn't out just doing that. Because, see, she made a call to a family friend who was at the house watching the kids at the time. Tia asked this friend for a favor. And this is how it basically went. Hey, girl, I just want to let you know that I need you to do me a favor. To me, you need me to do you a favor. Girl, I need you to get my cell phone and Harvey's cell phone. You know Harvey Lee. Get his cell phones and mine. And I need you to make them disappear somewhere. You can take it to your house or whatever. They just don't need to be in that house at all. The friend was like, at this time, yeah, I'm not doing that, baby. That sound like some shady shit that you got going on. I ain't doing that. Okay, don't worry about it, girl. Don't worry about it, girl. Don't worry about it. I don't even know why I even asked you. I shouldn't even did that to you like that. My apologies. So again, the friend not feeling this and confronted her again, like, girl, why you ask me to do all that? And she like, girl, I told you I'm sorry. I just don't want Harvey to be known as a violent person because he got a violent text in his phone. You know, doing that kind of security work sometimes, some of them clients be working you all up. So the girl like, bullshit. Why would you even know about his phone having anything like that? Like, unless he even either told you or you've been looking through his phone. And if you looking through his phone, what would make you want to look through his phone? Okay, this is a lot of unanswered question here. There's definitely something going on. I need to call them folks. And that's exactly what she did. She alerted the authorities, and she'll later testify in the trial about this. And not to mention, Tia never gave no reason why she wanted her own phone removed from the house. We already know you got some dirt going on. You don't want nobody to know, but you just gonna try to have an explanation for the man's phone, Harvey. That don't make no sense. So when the detectives learned all of this, they was like, "Yo, these two witnesses might be conspirators." So they got more search warrants, and this time they went back to the Young house. They got the clandestine GPS tracking device. They subpoenaed it records. They also collect those cell phones belonging to Tia and Harvey from the home. And you can tell that they probably look like a deer with headlights because they probably told them, by the way, we're going to need to use your cell phone. It's probably going to be possibly almost up to about 2 or 3 weeks. If there's nothing pertaining to the case that is going to be beneficial, you'll get it back. And if it is something pertaining to the case that is beneficial, well, you're not getting it back no time soon. Probably never. So they sweating bullets. So anyway, when they got no cell phone and that forensic got their hands on them cell phone between Tia and Harvey, boy, this case blew all the way open. I'm talking about like, yeah. So the digital evidence was damning on him. Like Harvey Lee's phone, the police discovered that in weeks before the murder, Harvey been searching ways to kill my man's, like on the internet, like exotic ways to kill somebody. Especially on October 28, 2017, Harvey had queries online about buying poisonous snakes or spider venom. Now, y'all know that this type of stuff is lethal, especially if you ingest it, or even put it on your skin. So you know this is crazy. So now the police is like, why is he searching up for this kind of stuff? And then what's even more disturbing, on the night of the shooting, while police were still swarming the crime scene, Harvey's phone showed he went online to read about another murder case and how that defendant had pleaded guilty. It appeared that Harvey was immediately comparing notes with other killers, perhaps gauging what mistakes to avoid. Damn, man, you studying this junk like it's a SAT in this motherfucker. Now, Tia's phone yield its own trove of incriminating content, and she had a save meme that was real dark. Like it looked like it felt like she was it was telling a confession. This is what it read. The meme: the fortune teller says your husband will meet a violent end in the cartoon. The wife asks, will I be convicted? You can't make this shit up. Now, this chilling image was saved on Tia's phone, and the detectives also uncovered some intimate emails between Tia and Harvey, exposing that they had a full-blown romantic affair. That's right, Harvey, the best friend that George let in his house while he was on bad times. My man's living in a hotel, gave my man's a job, and made sure he stayed in the house rent-free, was doing the following. Let me get that clap. Clapping them cheeks. That's right, clapping to your cheeks behind my man's back. Man, I tell you, man, you can't trust some of these niggas. I'm sorry I had to say it that way, because that's what that was, because that's dirty. You mean to tell me this man gave you a place to stay? I mean, while you was on your worst of luck. And this is how you pay this man back, by bending his wife over and giving her the third leg? Damn, homie. Now, when this is being brought up to them based upon the investigation, they automatically denied the affair. But when they was first questioned, Tia insisting that, no, we just like siblings. But when they showed them their own email exchanges, the love notes, the plan, both Harvey and Tia finally admit the truth. They had been lovers behind George's back. And I guarantee you, she sent him some nudes. I guarantee it. I would not be surprised. Either she sent him some nudes, or she actually let him take picture of her in the nude while he was smacking them cheeks in that house. I would not be surprised. I'm serious. So now the picture is becoming more and more clear to law enforcement. The motive, the means, and the opportunity were all coming together. Because see, Tia was about to get on the come up with the death of George. Because with George going on to see the good Lord, she stood to gain $1 million of life insurance payout upon George's death. And in the very morning after the murder, Tia done went up here and asked the employer to help her find the policy documents and call the insurance company to begin a claim. Told you the girl is on it now. Later on, it will be bringing out in court to note that there were a million reasons George Young was killed that night, and that hefty insurance policy for Tia was one of them. And Harvey Lee, being the direct beneficiary of not only George's kindness and loyalty, had his own incentive that he was looking for. Because with George gone, Harvey hoped to take over George's security contracts and business. So basically, in one stroke, you get George out the way, cash in on the insurance, you can slide in not only his professional shoes, but his love life shoes as well. So, with that being stated, that's a lot to think about. It's supposed to be your homie. It's supposed to be a loyal friend. And all he wants to do is get you out the picture so he can take over your life. Man, that's cold-blooded, bro. So on April the 2nd, 2018, 5 months after George's death, Gwinnett County Police made a move. They arrested Tia Young and Harvey Tim Lee, finally charging the widow and her alleged paramour with George's murder. The warrants accused them of malice murder, felony murder, and aggravated assault, noting the conspiracy to kill for financial gain. Now, I'm going to break down to y'all with Georgia. Georgia has a weird thing about malice murder and felony murder. See, like, if you commit murder, there's no first degree or second degree in Georgia. I mean, that's just straight. You murder somebody, you going to get malice murder. That is what it is. You murder somebody, whether it was first degree or second degree, it's going to be straight up malice murder. Felony murder is basically like you did something in the commission of a felony that causes a murder. Example given. Let's say me and my boy, not saying I'm like that, but this is an example, people. Me and my homie or whatever, we chilling one night, and then he tell me, yo, Joel, man, I'm about to hit this corner store and steal on this money off this cash register in this vault because I know they got money in there, and not to mention too, I got the vault number from the ex-employee that used to work there, the girl I used to hit off. I say cool. He said I'm gonna use a gun, all that stuff, but you know, ain't nobody gonna get hurt. All you got to do is just be on the driver's side, man, waiting for me to go. Come out and go. So let's say, for instance, my man's do that, right? We go to the corner store, he do his thing. He goes and holds somebody, hold the store up, whatever. He's attempting to get the money. He's attempting to get to the safe. And let's say the safe was already open. He done got the money. What time when he trying to run out the store or make it out the store trying to get to the car, let's just say, for the sake of this scenario, that the store owner gets an AR-15 and lit his ass up and almost like to lit me up. Da-da-da-da-da-da. My man's is dead on the scene, cash on the ground. I speed off. Well, even though I was not inside doing the robbery and my best friend got shot up, goes to the hospital, and they pronounce him dead on arrival, guess what? I'm now going to be charged with felony damn murder because I was in commission of a felony crime that caused the murder. So that's how that works in the state of Georgia. So she probably got felony murder because she plotted this crime, which is a felony, and it turned out to actually cause a murder. They can do that, man. I'm telling you, that's what they do in these big cases. They'll stick every charge they can think of to get your ass under the jailhouse. So anyway, the community is still trying to put it together. How can this be? This is Tia Young. This the woman we had seen on camera, sob, and accepted charity from her neighbors, telling everybody, thank you, God, for being there for me. It's the grace of you good people, blase, all this positive, I'm so humble energy. And the whole time, she is probably sitting back when she get home, laughing in everybody's face about how she is scamming them to keep herself, to scamming them when she is involved in this murder. Now, they said all that goodwill evaporated overnight. Go on the initial GoFundMe for Tia and her kids, that was shut down. Donors was requested refunds. One neighbor, Marcelo Bump, started a new fundraiser because he was like, listen, y'all, yeah, Tia Young is a fucking bitch, but don't you worry about it. We got to look out for these kids because these kids is innocent. They didn't know their mama was on one like that. They didn't know that they supposed Uncle Harvey was out here trying to get their daddy and take his spot. We got to look out for the kids. So that's exactly what they did. They set up a new GoFundMe for the 3 young kids and their grandmother. And they even put in quote, innocent victims in all of this. He emphasized. It's definitely not to help those responsible for the tragic event, But for those affected by it, the kids, they're going through a lot. And now they lost both their parents. Bump told a reporter, voicing the community's heartbreak and betrayal. Because the community really rallied behind her. I got to remember, this is Atlanta. Atlanta is predominantly black. They believe in trying to stick together, usually in the suburban areas of the black perspective. But Tia, on the other hand, she revealed she was that hood bitch, the one they talk about. I do not want living beside me. That's right. She probably associated with the new school YNs, if you know what I'm saying. So Tia Young and Harvey Lee, once presenting themselves as grieving loved ones, they now behind bars and they are waiting the trial because the stage was set for a courtroom drama that was going to take Gwinnett County and deliver justice for George. Now the 2019 trial begins, and we're going to talk about betrayal and exposed in court. So let me get this narrative going. All rise. Gwinnett County Superior Court is now in session. Judge Tracy Mason presiding. In late March 2019, the trial of Tia Long and Harvey Lee began. Prosecutors choose to try them together as co-defendants. This was a strategic move as the evidence against one often bolstered the case against the other. Oh, Jesus. The defense attorney had tried to separate the trials, fearing guilt by association, but the judge denied that request. The judge was like, yo, y'all did this shit together, y'all go get tried together. And so nearly a year and a half after George's death, the two alleged conspirators sit side by side in court, each flanked by their lawyers, each pointing subtly at the other as the real culprit. Man, what happened to the love? What happened to? Damn, I thought they were so in love, man. That's what happens when you become co-defendants. All that love and loyalty shit go out the window. Every man and woman is for themselves then. Prosecutor Stephen Fern opened the state's case with a compelling narrative, double betrayal. In a resonant voice, he outlined how George's kindness in taking Harvey had been repaid with an affair and a murder plot. Now let me get into my Stephen Fern voice. There was a million reasons George Young was killed that night. There was $1 million mutual of Omaha life insurance policy Tia Young stood to collect. Now, Fur emphasized how George had literally opened his home and his heart to Harvey, giving him a job and a place to stay, only for Harvey to start clapping his wife's cheeks behind his back. Now, the jury learned how Tia and Harvey lied about their relationship, claiming to be like siblings, while carrying on a secret romance. Fern even underscored the cruelty of their scheme, using hidden GPS tracker to stalk George's movements, then gunning him down as he returned from providing security at a late night event with his children inside. Woo! I tell you. Powerful evidence March 4th. Jurors saw the sickening meme from Tia's phone joking about her husband's violent end. They heard from the neighbor who witnessed Harvey apparently tampering with the car right after the murder. Technical experts explained the data from Harvey's retrieved GPS tracker, mapping how it had been used to follow George. And they listened as detectives detailed Harvey's internet searches for spider venom and other poisons that lead up to the kill. With each piece, the prosecution wore a tapestry of circumstantial evidence, so tight that an observer called it enough rope to hang that ass. At the event, the defense fought back hard on both sides, trying to chip away at the state's case. Tia Young's attorney, Scott Drake, stated one uncomfortable truth up front. Yes, Tia had an affair with Mr. Harvey Lee, but that does not make her a killer. He urged jurors not to let moral outrage over infidelity confuse them about the lack of direct evidence. Where was the murder weapon? Still missing. Where was the eyewitness of the shooting? There was none. And who actually pulled the trigger? On that critical point, even prosecutors couldn't say definitively, under Georgia law, both defendants were charged equally as parties to the crime, without specifying which one fired the gun. Drake argued the state's theory was full of maybes, and that Tia's panic after the fact, like wanting the phone's moved, was not proof of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but perhaps fear or confusion. Now I'm gonna stop right there on that one. First of all, she already made herself look bad because you want to remove the phones makes you look guilty. Now she would have just went on and said that she would let Harvey clap them cheeks behind her husband's back. She probably would have been able to sail past some of this shit. I'm not trying to condone what she did, and I'm not trying to promote any type of criminal activity, but I'm just saying that bullshit story of fear and confusion to remove them phones uh, was not a good play from the lawyers for her defense attorney. I'm just saying. Harvey Lee lawyer Dwight Thomas took a more blunt approach. He portrayed Harvey as a bungling friend, perhaps an adulterer, but not a murderer. Thomas highlighted that no gunshot residue was found on Harvey, no blood on his clothes, and that the only one shell casing was recovered despite 2 shots fired. Maybe Thomas hinted an unknown assailant used a revolver, which wouldn't reject casings. And Harvey's only crime was helping Tia cover up out of misplaced loyalty. It was a stretch, but creating doubt was the defense's only hope. So for 2 weeks of testimony, the jury watched this tragic family drama play out in evidence and in witnesses. They learned how the day after the murder, Harvey had approached a co-worker at George's office not to grieve, but to ask if he could keep working for the security company, sliding into George's role within hours of his death. They saw the text where when an app alert tipped George off to the tracker on his car, Harvey lied to George that it was a mistake aimed at tracking his movements. They heard from LaTanya Knowles, the colleague on the phone with George until the very moment he arrived home, and her testimony underscored that nothing seemed amiss in those final seconds before George stepped into the ambush. Bit by bit, prosecutors Fern and Porter unraveled the defense claims and reinforced their own. Tia and Harvey acted together with malice and forethought to execute George for money and selfish gain. Well, by April 5th, 2019, both of the sides rested. They had the jurors that they had to wait for, which were 7 men and 5 women. I don't know their races. I would be lying if I told you I did. They retreated to deliberate on a stack of charges. Again, malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and for Tia, 2 counts of attempted tampering with evidence. They would have to parse the legal 5 points. Malice murder in Georgia means an intentional premeditated killing with malice of forethought, whereas felony murder means a death caused by the commission of a felony, which I told y'all earlier. And even if Tia did pull the trigger, if she was a willing participant in the felony that led to George's death, she would be equally guilty of felony murder. The deliberation stretched on for over 11 hours, which is pretty impressive, because usually if it's 11 hours, they may have some hope for both of these defendants. An indicator of the jury's diligent review. Finally, on the evening of April 5th, 2019, the jury returned to a tense courtroom with their verdicts. Will the defendants please rise? Tia Young was found guilty of felony murder, guilty of aggravated assault, and guilty of 2 counts of attempted to tamper with evidence. Now, she was acquitted with 1 count, malice murder. In other words, the jury held her responsible for George's death and the cover-up attempt, but stopped short of calling her the intentional mastermind. Now, Timothy Lee, on the other hand, was not so lucky. He was found guilty of malice murder, guilty of felony murder, and guilty of aggravated assault. The jury clearly saw Harvey as the primary actor, the one who pulled the trigger, giving the malice murder conviction for him. Damn. As the clerk read the verdicts, Tia Young began to cry quietly, while Harvey Lee showed little emotion. First of all, Tia, why the fuck are you crying? You killed your husband. What do you thought was going to happen? People's going to be very remorseful for you? No, you planned this. You started a whole relationship. Y'all even talked about track it. It's too much evidence. Sorry, it was too much evidence. You knew what y'all were doing. This is the games you play. This is your reward. George family members in the gallery held hands and wept. Justice at long last was served. Observers noted that Judge Tracy Mason, presiding over her first murder trial since taking the bench, maintained a calm but firm demeanor as she thanked the jurors for their service. The following week, on April 11, 2019, sentencing was held. Gwinnett County prosecutors had not sought the death penalty, so the only options were life in prison with or without parole. And for the murder counts, Judge Mason weighed the evidence in the jury's findings. Harvey Lee, deemed the trigger man by the malice murder count, received the harshest sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Tia Young, she's convicted of felony murder as a co-conspirator. The judge imposed life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, plus an additional 3-year consecutively to be served for the attempted evidence tampering count. So that means even if she gets paroled after 30 years, she got to go and continue to serve her 3-year time in prison. So yeah, now in practical terms, that means Tia life is over because this broad will not be eligible for parole into 2049 when she is about 73 years old. And again, like I just said, if she gets granted, she still got to add 3 years to that 73. So she's going to be damn near 80 when she gets out, if she live that long. I don't see her living that long, but usually people that do crimes like this, they don't live past 60 in prison. I'm just being honest. As the judge announced the sentences, she addressed the courtroom, acknowledging the profound loss suffered by George's children and admonishing the defendants for their unforgivable breach of trust. Her exact words were not recorded in our sources, but I can kind of imagine what she told their ass. In a victim impact statement, George's relative described him as loving son, a brother, a doting father, a man of faith. Now, George wasn't active in his local Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, which I think is kind of unique because I know Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't celebrate holidays. And I don't know if Timothy was a practicing Jehovah's Witness because usually they're not only supposed to be friends and communicate with only other Jehovah's Witnesses. But I digress. They spoke through tears about the cruel irony that the very people he cared for, his wife and his friend, had taken him away. George's oldest son, just a teenager, stood in court and said he forgave his mother, T, but I would never understand why you did what you did. A poignant mix of heartbreak and resilience is what I can say about that young man. So thus, nearly 18 months after this terrible night on Montauk Hill Drive, the criminal case was closed, with both Tia Young and Harvey Lee headed to Georgia prisons for the rest of their lives. But this story ain't quite over because you got to remember they got a right to appeal. So let's talk about the appeal drama. So even after they settled into their prison routines, right? You know, Tia Young is at Pulaski State Prison. Harvey Lee is at Macon State Prison. Both continue to maintain their convictions were unjust. So, you know, like all criminals do, they file appeals, advancing different arguments. And by 2022, their case had reached the Supreme Court of Georgia for review. Now, Tia Young's appeal was heard first. Now, her attorney raised 3 points. They said first, they contended that the evidence at trial had been insufficient to support her conviction, essentially arguing that there was no reasonable jury that could have found her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Perhaps they had implied that the state had proven that Harvey was the killer, but merely just showed Tia had an affair and behaved suspiciously, which didn't equal the murder. Second, they argued that the trial court erred by refusing to sever her trial from Harvey's. Tia claimed that she was prejudiced by being tried alongside her co-defendant, given how much more, in her view, evidence of planning and violence pointed to Harvey alone. If jurors heard all about Harvey's venom searches and assumed guilt by association, was that fair to Tia? And third, Tia appeal appointed to an alleged mistake in the jury instructions on the evidence tampering count. The judge, they said, might have charged the jury improperly about the elements of attempting tampering, which could have confused jurors in deciding those two lesser counts. Good job, Tia. Yeah, Tia. And this was back in early part of 2022. By November of 2022, the Georgia Supreme Court issued its decision on Tia's appeal. The justices affirmed her convictions on all accounts. They addressed everything that she said and said that everything that was presented and done was correct. Get that shit out of our face and continue to serve your life sentence. Have a great fucked up day. Now, getting back to Harvey, all right. They try to say that Harvey's evidence was over that Harvey's appeal, which took a different track by October 2022. His case has also reached the Georgia Supreme Court. Harvey's new lawyer did not dispute the someone murdered George. Instead, he focused on the missteps by Harvey's trial attorney, ineffective assistance of counsel, talking about violating his constitutional rights, the good character evidence about George, the prosecution glowing portrayal of the victim as a beloved family man. Say that was a prejudice evidence to Harvey as a defendant. Try to say that a photograph of George alive with his children shown to the jury was a way to tug on their heartstring instead of focusing on the evidence, and comments on Harvey's post-arrest silence, because the state had alluded to the fact that Harvey didn't volunteer certain information after being read his Miranda rights. Well, the Supreme Court was not persuaded, and they said on October the 22nd as well, fuck your claim. You are going to serve this time. Nobody is going to irreverse nothing. Everything that we did was to show humility and to make George have a voice in this trial. You had your time to have a voice, and you fucked it up. So now with all these rulings, Tia Young is no longer considered Tia Young. She is now considered to be the property of the state of Georgia Department of Corrections, with her inmate number being number 00014799138. And not to mention Harvey Lee, who is also a Georgia Department of Correction and is now inmate number 00014799139. And they will spend decades, and Tia will spend decades, and Harvey will spend the rest of his rotten life in jail. Now, in 2023, they still reported and confirmed Tia at that time was 48, but she'll probably be about 50 this year. Harvey, who was 44, will probably be about 46 this year, are still a few years into their life term. So we're going to talk about some of the crazy facts that happened after all this. After Tia's arrest, George's mother-in-law, Tia's own mother, stepped up to care for the boys. The community, recognizing the innocence of the children, they continued to support them. Donations from the new GoFundMe help with the boys' education and counseling needs. Now, George extended family in South Carolina and beyond also rallied to ensure the children retain connections with their father's side. In interviews, George's sister expressed forgiveness towards Tia for the sake of my nephew, Hart, but also profound sorrow that such forgiveness was even necessary. But the community still have a problem with forgiving Tia and Harvey, because this was Tia was the faces of PTA meetings and cookout and just a sense of community. And now here she is, one of the worst people that they have ever encountered. Now, meanwhile, George's legacy lives on. Metro Atlanta security remember him as a reliable, fair boss. In 2018, Ackerman Security, the company George subtracted for, established a memorial scholarship in his name for local students pursuing criminal justice or security careers. And in Beaufort, each November 16th, a few neighbors still place flowers on the doorstep of the home on Montauk Hill Drive, a quiet tribute at the spot where George fell. The house itself was sold shortly after the trial. New owners were told of his history and has been respectful of the memorial gesture. And either way it goes, guys, this just goes to show you that this was a very sad case. Now I will put my my notes and my sources on the podcast notes about on description about this, but I'm gonna give you my ending on this, and then I'm gonna bounce out. Sorry for it being a long episode. I wanted to get it done in one take. I did not want it to be 2 hours long, but it wound up being almost that. But I didn't want to do 2 parts either. So anyway, I just want to tell you guys that my thoughts is about this case is that Tia seemed to me that she was the type of woman that she wanted the finer things in life. You know, some people you just can't satisfy. You know, some people in life, they want it all. You know, no matter how hard you work to please them or to show them love and affection, they just don't want it. And in my case, I think in this case, Tia wanted that. Tia wanted to be with the Joneses. She did not want to be one of those women that accept the fact that her husband could not afford all those things. I mean, it's sad but true. Another thing that I realized off this case is that Harvey Timothy Lee was a fucking snake. He was a snake from the get-go. He really hated his homeboy's life. When he saw his homeboy set up, nice house, beautiful kids, a nice looking wife, and I mean, Tia is not no dime piece, please. She is not the ebony woman of the month, but you know how some Negroes are. If she's a 6.5 or a low 8, they going after it, right? And that's what I think he saw. He saw Tia as, man, you know, she got a little body on her, you know. She's something that I can have fun with. And I think also with Harvey, when Harvey saw how much money in contracts George had accumulated through his subcontract business as a subcontractor with his security company, and all the money that he was getting in and paying these guys, he was like, fuck, I need that. I want that. I'm going to get it. So I think that's what happened. Who do I think is the mastermind of all this? I think it was Tia. I think Tia was the mastermind. I think that Tia woke up one day after playing around with Harvey, doing their own rendezvous, and probably said to herself, I'm tired of being with George. But if I leave George, I ain't gonna have no money. You know what I'm saying? And there may be a possibility he could get custody of the kids because he's making the money. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go ahead on here and I'm just gonna move George out the way. I need help to move him out the way. Oh, I know who I get to help me. The man that is letting me have all this fun with him, and I let him clap these cheeks, Harvey. And all I got to tell him is that he could just slide into George's shoes and be that nigga. And that's what he did. He said, yeah, I do it, because that's what it was about. He wanted my man's life. He wanted his life, and Tia wanted that money. Again, y'all, this just goes to show you, man, it ain't worth it. Get a divorce if you're not happy. All right, y'all. That's the end of this. Please join my Facebook discussion group. You can't make this BS up. If you got any questions, also too, please don't forget to follow us on Instagram. You can't make this BS up. Also, please do not forget to also drop a comment if you like this. And also too, if you don't have nothing good to say, if you don't feel like it's a 5-star on this episode or any of my episodes, just drop a comment instead, because we're trying to get noticed. And also to follow our YouTube channel. You can't make this BS up. That's it. I'm done. I am out.